waiting for Godot. Two men stand by a tree on a road. Nothing else marks the place, no destination, no sign. They are waiting. They are not sure for whom. They also don't know why they are waiting. Who is Godot? God? They cannot say who Godot is. They cannot say why they trust him. They cannot say what will happen if he comes. They just wait. Nobody ever dares to describe who Godot is. It makes not just the actors but also the audience uncomfortable. Silence hangs on their heads, on their stage. The endless wait is not a disappointment. This endless wait is what sustains the ego. Beckett leaves the ego destituted, an orphan in the middle of the ruins.
So we have one of my most loved plays today. Serving as a potent pointer to existentialist thought. Waiting for Godot. I performed it in full in my college days and a small adaptation of it also with the members of the foundation long years back. Samuel Beckett is a leading voice in the theatre of the absurd and a recent voice. Nobel laureate, Heidegger's contemporary. We met Heidegger last session, right? So broadly his contemporary. Heidegger lived till late 70s and Beckett was around till late 80s. So what we get from him is the essential condition of the modern man. Modern man, the modern human being. Ruthless writer, austere playwright, doesn't trust words or language too much. Performing Beckett on stage is a formidable challenge because he is always testing the limits of language. Naked, ascetic-like plays. Staccatos, half sentences, pregnant pauses, shrieking silences. You need to be an actor of some caliber to carry Beckett on the stage. Otherwise, you'll be exposed. When there is something to say, even an average actor can say that. When there is a point to be made, somebody can make the point. But here is a writer of pointlessness, meaninglessness. His words
are apologetic unto themselves. Not only is he a writer of few words, in this one, for the most part, only 2 characters are present on the stage. Actually, there are 4, or rather 5. In fact, including the absent one, you will have 6. But whenever you will have a picture representing the play, you will only find 2. Because the play is mostly about these 2, Vladimir and Estragon. One is referred to as Didi, the other as Godot. And these 2 are incessantly talking, bickering, quarreling, agreeing, disagreeing, even threatening to part ways. But nothing happens. Nothing happens at all. That's the play. Nothing happens. The weight is all that there is. An endless weight sans any happening. Nothing happens. And these 2 are just continuously waiting. At the end of each act, there is this random boy who emerges and says, Godot will not come today, or he will come tomorrow, something, and disappears. You have 2 other characters also. They serve another purpose. We'll come to that also. Does this grip you by now? Yes? Interested?
Yes.
Or sounds boring? Just 2 people on stage. Endlessly waiting for God knows who, and the fellow never seems to arrive. The play doesn't have any climax. It begins in the wait and ends in the wait. Theater of the absurd. I'll read out the adaptation for you. Then we'll discuss the themes contained in this. And then we'll throw some Advaitic light on everything. Right? So I'll read it out for you. Not sure where this adaptation comes from. Anupam got it from somewhere. He should have acknowledged. I hope it's actually a faithful adaptation. All right. 2 men stand by a tree on a road. There is nothing else there. That's the entire layout on the stage. There is this road, there is this tree, and they are standing by the tree along the road. Nothing else marks the place, nothing at all. Blank, austere stage. Which means, as a director, you don't have crutches. You can't provide your actors with props. And that's scary for most actors, because actors look for props. Give me something to hold. Give me something to fiddle with. Otherwise, you are standing naked on the stage. Nothing to lean on. Nothing to support you. You are there. And the piercing gaze of the audience focused on you. Huh? Nothing to distract. Nothing to divide the concentration. The script is not actor or director friendly, but it's beautiful, immensely enjoyable. Two men stand by a tree on a road. Nothing else marks the place. No destination, no sign. No destination, no sign. What does this look like? Life as it is. Life as it is. Life without the psyche. Life without the ego. But then these two are standing there, so the ego is standing there. And for these two, there is an imagined destination. And that is represented by the name of Godot. Otherwise, there is nothing. There is just life. No destination, no sign. They are waiting. They are not sure for whom. They are waiting. What does this sound like? The condition of the common man. Waiting for something. Something in italics. Not knowing what exactly that thing is, but the wait is perpetual. They are not sure for whom. They are not sure why. They also don't know why they are waiting. And that shows up in their conversation, in their mutual remarks. Nothing to be done. Let's keep waiting. Small sentences. Nothing to be done. Let's keep waiting. He'll arrive. The other one says, he may not. First one says, still, let's wait for him. Nobody ever dares to or even attempts to describe who Godot is, as if they are carefully avoiding it, because that would collapse the wait. Once Godot's hollowness is exposed, why and what would you wait for? But the wait is essential. The wait is essential to the existence of the ego. Therefore, though Godot exists as a name, he is never described as an object, a thing, a phenomena. Never. But they are waiting, and the waiting gives shape to the day. They argue about whether they are in the right place. They argue about whether it is the right day. They cannot agree. They argue about everything. But they never argue about Godot. They never argue about the wait itself. They talk to pass the time. They joke, they quarrel, they insult each other, then make up. They forget what they have just said. They repeat the same questions. There is a circularity. The wait does not lead to anything. It's A to B, B to C, C to A, and from C again A, B, C. A, B, C, back to A, B, C. This circularity is again and again witnessed in the course of the play. They fall silent, but silence becomes uncomfortable, so they speak again. Silence hangs on their heads, on their stage. It makes not just the actors but also the audience uncomfortable. They consider leaving. One says, let's go. They do not move. They do not move. They are not really idiots. This is not a satire or a comedy or anything amusing. Intellectually, it seems they do know the absurdity of their positions. They even consider that they may leave, but they never leave. Just like the modern person. Intellectually, he or she does know that the whole thing is very hollow. But nobody ever leaves or drops the weight. That doesn't happen. They discuss leaving in detail. They even imagine what they might do if they left, but they never leave. They wait. Someone passes by. He speaks strangely. He orders another man about. This is the other pair, Bozo and Lucky. They watch him, confused and fascinated. When he leaves, the road is empty again. They return to waiting. They speak of the past. They are unsure if it really happened. They disagree about what they remember. One of these remembers more, Vladimir. Appears like being more mature and more reflective. The other one is more forgetful. Memory slips away as they speak. They speak of the future. The future remains vague. Tomorrow, the word tomorrow is mentioned often. Nothing is decided. They wait. They say waiting is necessary. They say Godot will explain everything. They say Godot will tell them what to do. They cannot say who Godot is. They cannot say why they trust him. They cannot say what will happen if he comes. They just wait. They feel tired. They consider sleeping. But they fear missing Godot if they do sleep. They consider hanging themselves. They discuss it seriously. They lack the means, so they abandon the idea. Absurd. They wait. A boy arrives. He says Godot will not come today, but surely tomorrow. They question the boy. They ask if he is sure. They ask if Godot remembers them. They don't know who Godot is. The boy does not know. The boy leaves. Night begins to fall. The tree stands bare. The road stands empty. The light fades. They wait. They say they will leave tomorrow. They say everything will be different tomorrow. They believe it for the moment. Let's go, one says. They do not move. Tomorrow will come. Tomorrow will pass. Tomorrow will resemble today. They will meet again. They will talk again. They will wait again. They will say, let's go. And they will not go. What Beckett has done, the masterful neti of everything the ego seeks support in. He is coming from Europe, Ireland. He would write in English and French as well. He is coming from a prosperous Europe, with the ego at the center and the entire architecture of support systems around it. Right? A lot to support the void within. So that's where Beckett is coming from. The modern man with a huge number of objects that can promise him fulfillment tomorrow. Today, obviously, he stands very, very unfulfilled, as unfulfilled as Vladimir and Estragon. Today, he stands with nothing. Just hunger, thirst, psychological hollowness. That's how he stands today. But the support structure is very rich. It says, fine, there is more. There is something coming next, and that is the tomorrow. That is the wait. There is always something more to be tried. There is always a future promising the arrival of Godot. Beckett's job is to tear the entire structure down, and the ego is left standing in the middle of that ruin, naked, stripped of all crutches. Right? The condition of the modern man is, in the existentialist view, that the support structure is elaborate, detailed, rich, promising, and in the middle of that support structure stands somebody psychologically impoverished. The structures are rich. The one at the center of it all is poor. In fact, it is because of the promised richness of the structures that this poor one is able to exist in spite of its very own poverty. All it has is restlessness, suffering, and endless weight. Yet it manages to survive because for every suffering, for every restlessness, there is a Godot coming tomorrow. The Godot is far from a disappointment. The Godot is what keeps the ego alive. It appears as if this endless wait is a disappointment to the ego, only superficially. No. The endless wait is not a disappointment. This endless wait is what sustains the ego. I am bad, but somebody, something is coming someday. I am bad. These two characters are honest enough to admit that they are not in a good inner shape. They confess that. However, something is coming. What's coming? That's left vague, unanswered, even unattempted. Something is coming tomorrow in the shape of somebody. And that tomorrow is not necessarily the next calendar day. Even the tomorrowness is vague. It could mean the next minute or the next century. Or in case of Lok Dharma, the next birth. Do you see what's going on? So, Beckett leaves the ego destituted, an orphan in the middle of the ruins. The great support system, the Mayavi mansion, is demolished. Everything has fallen. And in the middle of all that stands the wailing ego. The wailing ego. Now, Beckett, very interestingly, does not liberate the ego from there. That's a crucial difference between existentialism and non-duality. Advaita would say, think of Ashtavakra. You are free. Once the bondage in the form of illusions is gone, you are free. You are free. In contrast, Beckett's characters intellectually do confront the illusions. They do. As we said, they are not idiots. Intellectually, it often seems as if they have realized that this Godot thing will never materialize. They have seen that. And yet they continue to wait. And that drives home a very important point. Just knowing it intellectually does not suffice. In fact, in that sense, existentialism challenges Advaita. Because Advaita would say, see and be free. See and be free. Here it appears as if these guys are seeing and they are yet not free. As if, see, when it comes to demolishing the nonsense, existentialism and non-duality walk together. They both demolish the nonsense. Right? There is sharp inquiry that you see in Advaita, you also see in existentialism, and it's all of this is looked at and it's made to lose its charm, its potency, its grip. Right? But in spite of all the fallen structures, all the demolished nonsense, existentialist writers never say that there is something called absolute liberation. In fact, very interestingly, they say the wait still continues. In saying that the wait still continues, what they are effectively saying is that the ego still continues. So it's a commentary on the state of the ego. It's not a path to liberation, existentialism. It's a commentary on the state of the ego, but not a path to liberation. What's the missing link? What's the missing link? We are preempting it. But since we are there, it's opportune. The missing link is honesty. When Advaita says, see and be free, it is assumed, it is taken for granted that the seer has a burning resolve to be free. And that is not an assumption. That is in some way ensured by the eligibility criteria. You remember Sadhan Chatushtay? You remember Shat Sampat? So the classical framework there is that only the deserving ones have anyway entered the path. They are the ones who already have mumuksha. That is taken as one of the 4 essential conditions in Sadhan Chatushtay. That only the one with these 4 qualifications is fit to be the seeker. And one of the essential conditions is a deep desire, an overwhelming desire, not just an ordinary desire, a resolve to be liberated. Both an appreciation of bondage, appreciation in the sense of realization of bondage, and deep disgust towards bondage. That is taken for granted. It is assumed that if you are the seeker, then you already have these qualities. And therefore, when you see through the nonsense of the ego and the ego-object relationship, you will no more choose to remain stuck. However, if the seeker, to begin with, does not have the required intent itself, then in spite of the seeing, bondage would remain. Because the inner decision is to remain in bondage. Seeing can be overruled by intent. Seeing can be overpowered by the seer. Seeing is happening, but the intent of the seer is dominating the seeing. And this part is reflected very vividly in the Lucky Pozo relationship. One of these two reflects the authoritarian ego, the other reflects the intellect in bondage. Act 1, the ego is powerful and shouting and commanding the intellect to work. And what's the work? It shouts and says, think, think. Act 2, we find the dominating ego gone blind and the chained intellect gone mute. That's the message. Intellectual seeing won't help if it is dominated by the authoritarian ego. First of all, the ego has to make a decision for itself. Otherwise, the intellect cannot help it. The intellect is a slave. Does that remind you of the Bhagavad Gita? The intellect is a slave. And these two are in a master-slave relationship. That also reminds us of Hegel, the master-slave dialectic. These two are in a master. Who is the master? The ego is the master. When the ego is the master, then the intellect will keep obliging. The intellect will do the ego's bidding. The intellect will perform as much as it can, and yet there would be no liberation, because it is not the intellect that needs to be liberated in the first place. Who needs to be liberated? Ego. And it's very dramatic. When the intellect is commanded, think. He actually says that, think. And this one starts thinking. Are you getting it? Now, interestingly, the existentialists never imagined a situation where the ego would be so honest that seeing would result in freedom. Therefore, in existentialist literature, agony never ends. It only becomes more authentic. The aim there is not liberation. The aim is authenticity. They say you are anyway going to suffer. That's life. Just suffer more honestly. In the entire corpus there is nothing called mukti. There is tension, there is anxiety. Angst. Even suicidal deliberations, to be or not to be. But never liberation. Ultimately, Camus would tell Sisyphus, if this is what you have to do it with poise. Why beat your chest? Why resist your condition? Are you getting it? But we have jumped to the very boundary of existentialism. We have gone to the place where it falls silent. We have preemptively talked of the demolished structure and the naked subject standing in the middle of the structure. In this process, we have probably rushed through the details of what has been demolished. So let's revisit that. What has been demolished? Meaning has been demolished. Any meaning that the ego gives to itself is false. Meaninglessness. There is no meaning in any of this. And authenticity, honesty lies in confronting that there is a routine, there is a circularity, there is an obligation, there is a movement, but there is no meaning. We are all going through the motions. And that's terrible. Getting it? Time. Time is another pillar that is subjected to the existentialist hammer. Time will not help. Yesterday will not help. There is a lot of yesterday as well in the play. They try to recollect what has happened before, and often their memories get confused. Time will not help, neither yesterday nor tomorrow. We lean on time. We convince ourselves as if tomorrow is going to be a new day. That's not going to happen. Godot didn't arrive today. Godot won't arrive tomorrow. Well, who the hell is Godot? Who is Godot? God? Godot. God? God? Fulfillment? Godot is ego's trope. Ego's device to keep itself alive. Godot is not fulfillment because the ego is anyway not looking for fulfillment. You see, that's the difference in the starting point itself. In Advaita, you have an ego right at the beginning that actually wants fulfillment and is not getting it. In existentialism, right in the beginning, you have a dishonest ego that suffers, that is intellectually sharp, that can perceive the whole architecture of nonsense and yet would cling to it. Even after the architecture is demolished, it would still cling to it. Are you getting this? So the Advaitic process, the Vedantic process assumes or requires or necessitates in the beginning itself an ego with some innocence. Now, probably the existentialists didn't encounter such innocence in their surrounding. So they said, anxiety will remain your lot, and hollowness will remain your life. You will have to carry the burden of nonsense. Just that if you have to carry nonsense, rather than carrying others' nonsense, carry your own nonsense. And I'm caricaturing it, but this is what was called as authenticity. So Sartre would say, your essence is something that you have to discover and decide for yourself. Existence comes first. Existence indicating biological existence. Existence precedes essence. So you are born. But then what you want to do with your life, you must decide. In all this, there is never the deep question, who is going to decide? You, the you, is taken for granted. The sharp inquiry, who am I, is missing. Though What is always put to sword is who I am not. The existentialists were rebellious. They could see that the society dominates, they could see the habits dominate, so they would very strongly resist all of that. But that there is something called innate ego tendency itself. And that is the root cause of all external domination. They never came to this point. So they kept resisting all the external forces and variables. And having done away with all the external tyrants, they found that there still is inner angst. And to that they said, well, live with it. At least you are now more authentic. And that was beautiful in many ways, because there is just so much outside that needs to be challenged. The existentialists, the absurdists, did a great job of challenging the outer hegemonies. Culture, custom, religion, the state, morality. These people said two hoots. We don't care for all that. But even after you have put all those things into the waste bin, you find that mischief still remains within. You are still not at peace. You are still restless. And to this, the existentialists said there is no solution. Here you have waiting for Godot. Then you have endgame. You have no exit. You look at the theme. You look at the tone there. No exit. No exit. Or in other words, only death is the exit. The chairs. These plays are, by the way, very beautiful. They shake you up to the core. A lot of people won't want to sit through an absurdist play. Though they are also sprinkled with jokes. Even in Godot, these two people sometimes throw jokes at each other. So that makes them more bearable. A bit of comedy here and there. What do we have here? The ego, the dominating ego, the submissive intellect, time, waiting, meaninglessness. Words. These guys keep chattering compulsively, because silence would expose to them the meaninglessness of their condition, their weight. So just anything they keep uttering, some random gibberish. And they also keep lying. They also keep making up things. That's the human condition. You don't know who you are. And you don't know who you are waiting for. But you are endlessly waiting. The wait is a huge deception, because when you use the term waiting, it appears as if you want the wait to end. No? When you honestly say you are waiting for somebody, it is meant to mean that you want that person to arrive, right? If you say I am waiting for X, it's supposed to be understood that you want X to arrive, right? The case is entirely different here, and that is the point. The ego very deliberately waits for something which it knows is never going to arrive, and it is the waiting that would therefore sustain the ego. Ego is another name for waiting. If the waiting ends, the ego would end. Therefore, one must always have a future. Therefore, there must be motivation, optimism, and such things. Are you getting it? There is this road passing in front of them. These two keep looking this way and sometimes that way. What does that indicate? Yeah, past and future. But these two never look into the mirror. What would the mirror indicate? The present. The road is a great method. The road is a clever means. What inner purpose does it serve? It helps you not look at the ground beneath your feet. Because now you can look this way and you can look that way. Who wants to look at the place where you are standing right now? Do you see this? That's the human condition. That's what the existentialists were addressing. They were seeing the collapse of everything. And they had the courage to let the dilapidated structures of the past collapse around them. And if it deserves to fall, let it fall. At the same time, they don't show a way out. And that's not necessarily something to be disappointed at. Because even if there is a way out and somebody still emerges from there, somebody still remains. The ego is a master at remaining. It can even remain as a liberated ego. The existentialists don't give that liberty to the ego. They say authenticity is about demolishing all the nonsense and then bravely, proudly and authentically standing in the middle of it. And if that entails suffering, so be it. So be it. There is no consolation for the audience at the end of the play. There is no happy ending. Neither does Godot arrive, nor any Messiah. The characters remain deluded even till the very end. The play ends exactly as it began. Nobody improves. Nobody becomes better. Nobody gets realized or liberated. As if Beckett is telling us, it is not a process, it is a decision. A lot can happen outwardly without anything happening inwardly. Inwardly, the happening would always be a decision. In fact, the time, yesterday, tomorrow, being referred to in the play is not just clock time, it is ego time. Time serving as ego's crutch. Time providing hope and nourishment to the ego. Maybe remaining as I am, tomorrow can be better. Well, remaining as I am, I see things are very bad right now. Fine. But that I will not allow to compel me to change, because there is the hope that remaining as I am, tomorrow might be better. This is ego time. Get this. Relationships. These two are not with each other to fulfill. They are with each other as the ego's mutual shadows. So the play is a striking commentary on the nature of modern relationships. These two are not inwardly fulfilled, they are also not fulfilled with each other. They are not great friends or companions of any kind. Sometimes they are good with each other, mostly they are not. They even threaten each other. They often decide to part ways, they say we are leaving. They never leave. That's the purpose of relationships, to maintain nonsense. In some sense, Godot has already arrived. For A in the form of B, and for B in the form of A. If Godot is the one who sustains ego, these two perform the same function for each other. Even from our companions, we keep wanting something that is never going to arrive. Never going to arrive. So there is the invisible Godot, and there are also visible Godots. So you may have a wife, but you are waiting for the lover to arrive. Yeah, the wife is there, but love never arrives from her. The husband is there, but the husband never becomes the lover you are waiting for. The kid is there, but the kid never provides the fulfillment you are waiting for. So these are visible Godots. Same thing applies to jobs and owned objects. Even intellect. Lucky and Pozo represent a very important relationship, inner relationship. The ego thinks that intellect might deliver the goods. The intellect never does. In that sense, the intellect too is Godot. I have thought it out. I have grasped it intellectually. I have dissected the philosophy to the last detail. Surely I now understand. And understanding is liberation. So I am liberated. But that liberation never comes, because liberation is not dissection. Liberation is a decision. You can know very, very finely, and yet you may decide to reject your own knowing. But sir, 3.5 years now in the Gita process, I am still as stupid as I was. My wife tells me I am actually more stupid now. That's entirely possible, and that's a decision. That's a decision. And you are not needed to be in any doubt. You are very definitely more stupid now. Because being stupid before Gita is justifiable. You are stupid even after 3.5 years of the Gita. You are certainly more stupid now. Stupidity is a choice. Stupidity is a choice. Stupidity is not chromosomes or conditions. It is some other C. Choice. You must go through the script. Bewildering insanities. Sometimes talking of this, sometimes talking of that. 100 random distractions. Just to help oneself and the companion feel as if they are sane, as if they make sense. Yeah, good day. Yeah, nice tree. Not exactly from the play, but isn't that how we behave? Randomly you meet someone and say, sure, you took some bath today. What's that supposed to mean? And why? Small problem is, ego time isn't the only time that exists. For the body, if we call the body real, there is a real clock and it's actually ticking. In the sense that the body is actually responding to that clock. Actually, not in the sense of it being absolutely paramarthically true, but in the sense that your body responds to that clock. And the body time that you have is limited. Ego time has zero respect for body time. Do you want to spend your body time just waiting? That's what the play leaves you with. No, the encouragement is not to go and grab what you desire. Why wait? Why wait? Ingratiate yourself tonight itself. Blink it. 10 angels in 10 minutes. That's not the point. The point is, you do not even know who Godot is. How will you order Godot from somewhere? The whole thing is a vague impression, that's all. I do not know of the fog within. And in the fog within, some nebulous image floats. How solid is that? How reliable is that? It's almost like somebody trying to paint on the surface of water. The foundation, the canvas, is itself not stable. How can the painting have any meaning? The flow of water, time, will distort any meaning you try to impose, right? You made something on the surface of water. Within half a second, what happens to it? You somehow managed to paint a beautiful face on the surface of water. What happens to that? Gone. Godot is that face. For Godot to have any meaning, first of all, the canvas must be solid. And that canvas is the question, who am I? Because it's not just waiting for Godot, it's I am waiting for Godot. Probably that's what the existentialists left ignored, right? They took it for granted, the I amness. And that's what Advaita just grabs by the collar and refuses to leave. The existentialists put emphasis on the waiting and Godot. And Advaita would place all emphasis on I am waiting for Godot. If I am is sorted out, the waiting will take care of itself. Getting it? But if I am is left to remain what it is, as an unexamined background, as a loose, mobile, unstable canvas. That's the nature of the self, right? Loose, mobile, unstable. If the I am is left to remain that way, then the waiting would be endless. And Godot would be faceless in the sense that it would have a million faces. Everything and everybody would periodically, temporally, here and there, coincidentally, spatially, become Godot for a while. In the play, there is no Godot. In our lives, there are a million Godots, and that's much the same thing. Nobody knows who Godot is, therefore anybody can be Godot. How many times have you, okay, how many of us have caught ourselves indulging in what's commonly called as time pass? Don't say you are passing time, say you are waiting for Godot. In fact, that should be the default answer to, so buddy, what's up?
Waiting for the Godot.
Well, waiting for Godot. What's up, buddy? Waiting for Godot. I don't know who I am. And yet I am waiting for some random imagined figure or situation or happening that would please me. Delhi, often this play is performed. It is iconic. Next time, try catching up. Those who are not into theatre will initially find it a bit boring. Why? Because nothing is happening. No hero, no heroine, no gunshots, no excitement, no songs. Just two random, dull, idiotic characters. And their inane conversation. And after a while, this random boy emerges from somewhere, we don't know from where, and says, not coming. Existence has to be the starting point. And why must one start at all? Because for most of us, existence is suffering. The reason why one starts, suffering. The point one starts from, existence. What kind of start am I talking of? Inquiry. That which you can call as the spiritual process or whatever. The reason has to be suffering, bondage. An acknowledgement that one is unfree. The point one starts from is existence. Existence of what? One's own existence. Because just saying suffering doesn't suffice. Complete the statement. I am suffering. Therefore, I am comes before suffering. I am suffering. I am waiting for Godot. Analyzing the world won't suffice if you do not know the motivation of the analyzer. intellectualism, rationality do not take you beyond a point. Rationalism too becomes tribalism. We are a group of individuals who love to question every belief, but we don't question why we love to question. So we are a tribe. We are a rationalist tribe. We are an intellectual tribe. I can demolish everything except myself. Therefore, after everything has been demolished, I find I am still left sobbing and standing. Sobbing and standing without anything to clutch, hold, grab. In some sense, that is freedom. In the other sense, it is not. Remember, your objects are not suffering, you are suffering. Your objects are not in bondage, you are. So, no point prioritizing your object so much in the process of inquiry or discovery. All your objects are to you. You are before any object of yours, right? So even if there is something wrong with the object, that comes later. There is something wrong with the object, yes, we understand. And there is something wrong with the subject, yes, that too we see. Now, why obsess over the object now when you see that the subject is more in need of attention? There is a burning car with a burning driver. Who do you save? The driver first, right? The driver first. Because the driver is the subject. The car is the object. Now think of the burning driver making desperate attempts to douse out the fire in the car, and the driver is himself burning. That's what the ego does. It sees a problem, but always out there. Turns out the driver was burning only because the car was burning. Turns out the moment the driver snaps the subject-object relationship, the fire is gone, because the fire actually belonged only to the car. Just consider this case. The fire actually belonged to the car. The driver was burning only because of his association with the car. It was the improper relationship that was burning. The driver leaves the car, the driver is free. The fire is gone. Peace. Leaving the car is a decision. Seeing that the car is burning is, yes, intellect. Seeing that I am burning along with the car is acknowledgement. Intellect, acknowledgement, none of them can be a substitute for decision. You can know, you can acknowledge that you know, and you can still remain endlessly stuck. You can even crack the Gita exam all the time because you actually intellectually do know. Your life decisions is something that the exam cannot test. That's something that only life can test. Or I can test if I see you in front of me and I'm in a bad mood. Hmm? Read their plays, their stories. Dostoevsky, Sartre, Kafka, Camus, Beckett, Ionesco. Hmm? And with Advaitic insight, you will relish them all the more. Even Nietzsche to an extent. All his philosophical fiction can be called existential. There is a lot of it in Indian languages as well. The question that Beckett asks of us is, can you be honest enough to admit that Godot will never arrive? Let it break your heart. Can you be honest enough to admit that Godot will never arrive? And that which you call as your heart is actually your ego. So let it break. With the promise of Godot gone, non egoic life opens up. Can you be brave enough or simply carefree enough to drop Godot? If you take Godot seriously, you will never drop him. You'll have to simply shrug him off. Ah, Godot. Godot. Godot is not arriving. This is all that there is. This is life. Godot is an escape from life. Just download the Acharya Prashant app, and there you go to the community section, and you have live testimonials streaming in at the rate of 1 every 5 minutes. I'm seeing lives change in thousands, if not millions, every day in front of my own eyes. We are doing it.
Right.
We have actually done it.
Join the community of more than 2 lakh participants on the Acharya Prashant app. Your first month is completely free. You'll get full access to Gita Mission. On the app, you will get regular live sessions, daily exclusive conversations with Acharya Prashant, access to the vibrant Gita community, wisdom exams, curated news, audiobooks, quotes, and much more. Search Acharya Prashant on Google Play Store or Apple App Store and download now.